Hello class, this is Matt McNeely. I'm here to do my demonstrative speech on how to build an aquatic bait live trap. By the time I'm finished, you should be able to recall each and every step and build your own live trap. It's very easy and it can be used over and over for quite some time. Have you ever had a pet of your own that you caught in the wild? Was it maybe a snake or a turtle, or maybe you caught your own fish? This trap will allow you to feed any pet that you were to catch in the wild or get from a pet store. You can feed them from their environment, live bait from their environment that they would normally eat. My son is 18 now, but whenever he was a young child, we always had snakes or fish, all kinds of things. And this is what we would do in order to feed them. We would catch tadpoles and crawfish and minnows, whatever we could catch, and then we would use those to feed the fish. You happen to have an extra 2-liter jug or some other bottle laying around. As you'll notice in the first step, I'm using a sheetrock knife, and I press it against the bottom of the bottle to ensure that it's locked. And then I began to cut on every other vertical line on there. I make one slice in. That will allow the water to drain out whenever you take the trap out of the ditch or out of whatever water you put in. It will allow the water to drain down to that point so that it's not full. So you have to determine at which height you would like to see the water whenever you take it out. The next step is you will insert the sheetrock knife into the bottle, even with the label at the top. Then you can get a pair of shears, a pair of scissors, whatever you have handy, and stick them into the hole that you've made and begin to cut. Cut around the top of the label using it as your guide so that it's level and it's even. Cut all the way around the entirety of the bottle until you have two separate pieces, and then you will be ready for the next step. For the next step, you're going to take the top that you cut off, the top third, and insert it into the bottom 2/3 of the bottle, upside down, just as the slide shows, ensuring that the top is even all the way around so that it's flush. And be sure remember to be careful when you're cutting things, when you're using a sharp knife or a sheetrock knife, or just as we're about to do, you're going to use a screw gun and a screw. Make sure that you have your fingers placed properly so you don't put a screw into your finger or into your hand. I like to use the screws because you will have to remove the insert so that you can pour whatever is inside out. And these screws are short and they're sharp, and after you've used them several times, you can actually use them with your hand to take it on and off. And as you can see now, it's inside. Next, you'll want to take the screws back out. And I know that seems redundant, but it is part of the process when I make one, so that I can already have a set of holes that are there. And then from that point on, anytime that I put it together or take it apart, I try to use the same holes so I don't have to have the screw gun in order to change the trap out at the ditch or in the stream, wherever I might find myself. You'll notice that I was able to put the first one in by hand, but the second one I was unable to put it in by hand. And that's quite difficult. That's why you want to try several times and have separate holes and try to get them aligned so that when the time comes and you're not there, you don't want to have to carry a drill around with you everywhere that you go. So as you see, I use the drill and I put it back together. I've removed the lid so that something can swim in, because the mouth of it's now like a flue. This is cat food. You can use cat food, you can use dog food, you can use raw food. Just remember, if you use dog or cat food, it swells a lot. So I used a lot more than you normally would just for demonstrative purposes, but you only want to use 4, 5, 6 pieces because it will swell quite a bit. In conclusion, I'd like to say this is something that you could do with a child, with a young person that you know, that they would remember. They would remember for most of their life, or maybe their entire life. A simple project that's really cheap. It's easy to do. The materials you already have, and with a little bit of time, you can create something that for a summer, for throughout the year, you can use this to catch things, and the memories, the fun, the excitement, the discovery each time you go to run them. is something that a kid will never forget. Just as this picture shows like a smallmouth bass, there's some that you can feed. We had garter snakes. This is a garter snake that's eating a minnow. We fed them that, and we fed them tadpoles. And finally, for myself, I actually caught a crawfish in the ditch, and I just wanted to show you that the trap actually does work. And even though it's cold outside and there's not as much water as there should be, I was still able to catch a crawfish in the road ditch. So the trap does work, and you can catch bait fish to feed your fish or just as a form of entertainment.